It's time that everybody gets to hear the truth.
Finally, since Alex Murdaugh told so many lies.
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
I'm Anne Emerson, an investigative reporter, and I spent every day of Alex Murdaugh's 6-week trial in that courtroom. That's me right there. I'll get to those truths in a minute. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to Criminally Obsessed, because I don't want you to miss any of our true crime deep dives. Now let's go back. When crime scene investigators first arrived at the Murdaugh property on June 7, 2021, they said something just didn't seem right with the way Alex was acting, and there was no blood on him. Not on his shirt, his shoes, not even on his hands. And he said that he turned Paul over to see if he was alive.
I could see his brain on his...
Alex murdered Paul and Maggie. Paul was shot twice, Maggie was shot 5 times. And there was almost an hour and a half between the time the coroner says Maggie and Paul died until law enforcement arrived on scene.
It's a cleaned scene.
There was no guns and no DNA found.
There's obviously a good chance he could have gotten off.
And he might have if they hadn't found the kennel video in Paul's phone.
We all had the same goal, and that was to get justice for Maggie and Paul.
3 detectives from the Colleton County Sheriff's Office wanted to go on the record to set some things straight after Alex's trial. This is part 2 of my podcast team's interview with Jason Chapman, Daniel Greene, and Laura Rutland.
That night, when we finally got everybody in a circle, and Laura had just got there with a search warrant, we pretty much got in a group, played the 911 call for everybody to hear as far as the investigators. And that's when I had a discussion with a few of them and said, I don't like his body language is like, it's not just slightly off, it's way off. Really uncomfortable not making him a part of the scene. Not that he was the shooter at the time, or not that he, was the only shooter at the time, but really, really, really hard for me with everything I had absorbed up to that point, excluding him from being involved. And then it was really in the next probably 72 hours after being able to go back and watch Agent Owens and Laura's interview, but that transcribed the 911 call and then all the stuff that I saw personally, and then Daniel's video, and you took those things and put them together, and within 72 hours, I was like, I've got a big problem here. And it wasn't necessarily a welcome thought, not that anyone was protecting or looking out for Alex, just because it was like, how in the world could that even be possible? And, again, we try to convince everybody we don't create evidence. We only find it, locate it, develop it, collect it, process it. We can't make it. I didn't make him act the way he was acting. I didn't cause him to do all those indicators that he did. He did those on his own. I just sat back and absorbed them. And then getting that big picture with Daniel's video and then the first interview and that phone call, I knew then that he was involved. I just didn't know to what level.
It's really early.
Dating that to slip.
Yeah.
As it's going along.
Again, we were working very tight. Laura was originally picked as the line liaison between the sheriff's office, and she can tell you that night when she walked up, I said, "Do you know Alex Murdaugh?" And she said, "No." I said, "Do you know anything about the Murdaughs?" And she said, "No."
Y'all familiar with this family?
I wasn't until he told me the names.
All right, I'll fill you in later.
Have you ever defended a case against a Murdaugh? You've ever prosecuted a case against? I don't know them. I said, well, congratulations, because you're the only one here that does not have any involvement or any preconceived notions or anything about them. You're now the case liaison. But she and I worked alongside everybody pretty much every bit of the way. So what we knew, they knew. We shared.
Yeah, in the beginning, we all met together every day, every morning. We were at SLED headquarters and just helping with whatever it was that they wanted us to assist them with. And he's right. He asked if I knew them, and I didn't. And then he asked if I knew Agent Owen. No. Okay, get ready, because he's your new best friend. And we worked really close for those first few weeks and got through the investigation and helped him with anything that they needed.
Laura, I mean, like literally within 24 hours, like came out and said, community, you're not in danger. This is in a, what did that mean to you? Were you part of that conversation to put that out to the community?
No, I'd never seen that before. I'm not sure where that originated, but I will say this. I've never been to Moselle before, but that night it felt like a very long drive. It's such an isolated area, and you would have to really know that property to have found Maggie and Paul that night. So I'm not sure where, the danger to the public came from, other than maybe it being such an isolated and incident that could explain it. But
I mean, as remote as it is, on my dash camera, which they didn't show any of my dash camera, but even on my body camera, you can see it. I drive past the driveway. Like, I'm looking for this place.
there are no lights.
And I couldn't even find it. So you see me drive past the driveway, I've got to do a quick U-turn and get back to the driveway because I didn't know what it looked like.
4147. Should be a vehicle in the driveway with the flashes on. That's going to be the caller.
Copy, I'm going on scene. It's got a long driveway, but the mailbox out front is labeled. He's not at the end of the driveway. He might be up by the house.
So it's probably safe for them to say right off the bat, this was targeted. This is something that happened on a property. Does that make sense to you?
Again, we didn't put that out, and I know it was a joint statement, and Laura's not kidding when she says we didn't know it went out because we were working. That went out between the PIOs and the agencies. But if you took the only statement, the only information he provided was that it's probably something to do with the boat case.
This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
He's been getting punched.
Is that now a threat to the public? No. I mean, if you're working off of his only bit of information he provided, it's not a threat to the public. The threat would have been towards Paul, and Maggie was in the crossfire. So, everyone being hung up on there's no threat to the public. There's always a threat to the public. Evil lurks around every corner, but if you work solely off what he said, there was nobody out there waiting to spring on someone else.
A lot of people have been wondering about the murder weapons. It's talked about a lot in court. Where are the guns? Where are the weapons? The blue raincoat covered in GSR, maybe Grandpa's, maybe not. Is that odd that did you guys think it was odd that, the murder weapons never came to surface? What do you guys think about that?
Do I think it's odd? No. You know why? It's a staged crime scene. We kept hearing, you're going to get us to go down that road now where we're going to talk about all the things that we didn't like. And you hear over and over and over again just the bombardment that the AGs didn't have any evidence. It was all circumstantial, and it was primarily circumstantial evidence. But I ask you this, Alex killed his wife and Alex killed his son, and Alex did the best job that Alex could do in the amount of time he had to remove all evidence that would link him to that crime scene. Should we have found a bunch of evidence there? No, it's a cleaned scene.
Man, if I knew then what I know now, I would have latched on and asked him about what he meant by a clean scene. This interview was shot after the trial. You have to go back and watch my interview with Blanca Turrubiate Simpson, the Murdaugh housekeeper, if you haven't already. She had her own theory about the cleaners.
It's interesting the way you talk about it because you don't talk about it as in Alec, the sole shooter, the way they set this whole scenario up and all of the... No, you don't. You don't see it like that.
I don't. I do not. He definitely had help. And when he's standing there talking to Officer Greene, you can see the marks right behind him, going towards where the pallet.
Who are you talking about?
The cleaners. I call them the cleaners.
But you know who the cleaners are.
I have a very good idea who they are.
I want to know what you think about the cleaners theory. I'll have a link to Blanca's interview in the caption.
You think about this, they're looking at the wrong angle. Look at how much evidence they found that he left behind by accident. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not using a cell phone anymore. You know, we talked about I'm carrying a rotary phone or a cup and a string because I didn't know all. We do this every day, and some of the things they testified to surprised us.
But the GM OnStar data reflects what, about 10 on the dot?
It reflects him pulling into the driveway at 4147 Moselle Road, the main entrance.
And where did the Suburban go first?
The Suburban went directly to the house, bottom left.
It didn't go to the kennels first, it went to the house first?
That is correct.
Do you recall the defendant's statements to law enforcement shortly after the crime? That he went over and checked the bodies and that sort of thing?
I do.
What, if anything, in his statements to law enforcement did the defendant say about what he did when he arrived at the scene?
The defendant stated that he went and checked on Paul and Maggie to check the bodies.
And from the moment the Suburban arrived at the kennels, how long did it take for that 911 call to be made?
Less than 20 seconds.
I'm gonna get a 1979 Ford Bronco with no electronics.
I felt the opposite. I was like, oh yes. I'm like, they're tracking me over on that.
She was making me change my passcode.
I changed all my passcodes to 4 digits.
I'm like, Tara, that wasn't the.
Well, does that make more sense now? I mean, you know, us not finding those things is just more evidence. Put it this way, sometimes lack of evidence is still evidence of a crime. The fact that we didn't find guns, that we didn't find all these things they wanted to be there, why weren't they there? Because he cleaned them up. Where were the bloody clothes? They weren't on him. He changed. The video shows that he changed clothes. But that, yeah, you know, it was all circumstantial. It was. And that's why I said I give the AG's office, the team that did all the investigations, the case agents, the SLED, crime scene, so much credit, because all of that stuff they presented was a mistake. Everything they found was a mistake on Alex's part. That was something he forgot or he meant to overlook, or it's something he can't control, like that body language.
So how much of this was premeditated in your opinion? Like when you look at the body of circumstantial evidence that convicted him, how much of this was premeditated? How much did you think he thought this through? Was this an act of rage? Did it happen at the last minute? Like, surely y'all have like sat up for the last year and a half like us, wondering why, what happened, how did he do it?
We'll never know why, truly. Only Alex knows why, and he's never gonna tell us why. But in my heart, I feel like it was not that planned. I think everything was snowballing. His world was crashing down. And that day, everyone has their limit, and he is way past his limit by the end of that day. So that's my feeling on it, on what happened. And you can see that on his body camera when he's looking at Paul. I don't ever see him look over at Maggie, but he keeps looking at Paul, and that means something. He knows what he did, and it was wrong. And I think I don't think a whole lot of planning went into it, which explains the mistakes that he made.
That explains the mistakes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, 2 guns. Who uses 2 guns in an act of rage and passion and?
But don't get so caught up where you're only looking at 2 guns from one angle. Everyone has a tendency to get tunnel vision. Who carries 2 guns to go do a shooting? No one said he carried 2 guns there. if it was a spur of the moment, if it was a total just collapse, a breakdown, a breaking point, and the shotgun's left inside the feed room, and it started with that, Paul, and it went sideways, and the shotgun was used, and then Maggie comes running to Paul's aid, and he has to find another weapon. And just giving you examples of why you don't get tunnel vision. Everyone's imagining Alex Murdaugh showing up carrying 2 guns turned across his shoulder, and you can't get tunnel vision like that. You know how many farmers have a snake gun in their shed or in their truck or in their car, and it has whatever rounds were available at the time to put in there? So, the fact that you kept hearing, why would someone going to kill someone use turkey load? Well, because it wasn't planned. That's the whole thing, is that, something happened and it was a spontaneous deal. And yeah, the shotgun may have been used initially, but then they had to find something else, to deal with Maggie. So we encourage everybody, we may never know until Alex ever comes clean, which he may never, we might not ever know. Was it premeditated? I don't really think there was a whole lot of premeditation to it. I agree with Laura 100%. And one of the biggest things we heard out here in the streets, everybody talking to us, was, I just don't think everyone's going to buy the motive of finances. I don't think everyone's going to buy the motive of finances. Well, we never push motive of finances. And the AG's office really wasn't trying to say it was over money. What they were trying to say is that every human being on this planet has a break-in point. Everybody. When you take the amount of money he had stolen, and he had gotten confronted at work, he's about to lose his only source of recouping any of that money and paying any of it back and covering it up. The boat case, his son's fixing to go to jail. There had been rumor that he was potentially harassing witnesses in that case. All this stuff. His marriage, they tried to portray the marriage as being this beautiful spotlight marriage, and it wasn't. It wasn't. So you imagine all of that stuff, and who knows what the trigger was. Like Laura said, it could have been anything, but it just piled and piled and piled on his shoulders, and something triggered it, and it went wrong.
Was it a Gucci receipt?
Or a dog
killing a chicken, and Maggie
who knows?
panicking.
You just don't know. How does a woman strangle her 3 children? Right before this trial started, you had, the woman that strangled one by one her own 3 children. She didn't have a bad life. She had a nice husband.
They spent the day playing in the snow?
Yeah, they played in the snow. They had a pretty house. They had good jobs. They were great people, no criminal background. She strangled all 3 of her children, one by one, and then jumped out of a building trying to commit suicide. Why? I mean, you can't say that he would never kill his wife. He would never kill his son. We would like to think that. Morally, as human beings, we think that's not possible. But it is.
But y'all know, because you've seen it before.
We had a case months ago with a father getting mad at his family after they had spent all day emptying out a shed. He went to get lunch, came back. They'd put everything back in the shed. He got mad, got his gun, killed his...
2 guns.
Yeah, 2 guns, killed his son, killed his wife, shot at his other kids as they ran away. I mean...
Everybody just has a break.
Everybody has a... Yeah.
Why do you say their marriage wasn't good?
They weren't living together.
They weren't living together. You don't live in Edisto because you don't like the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
There's bugs in Edisto.
Yeah.
When you go home, when you call your friend, your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, whatever, and you say, hey, I'm on the way, what do you say? I'm on the way where? Home. Everything they read in the text messages, they're referencing properties by names. If Maggie's saying, I'm going to Moselle, I mean, she didn't say I'm going home. She didn't even say I'm going to the kennels. I'm going to check on the dogs. And there are a lot of people that were afraid to come forward. The information that we hear that someone didn't want to take a stand and say because they were afraid of repercussions or afraid of the family or whatever. But it's just the impression that we got was that it was not the perfect marriage. And I understand nobody has a perfect marriage. And again, we weren't blaming it on that, but it's just another bit of weight on the shoulders.
I just wanted to add with the 2 guns, he even testified that he drove up there on the golf cart. And there was also testimony that the 300 Blackout was always on that golf cart. So I just wanted to point that out, that he did have access to it if it was something that wasn't planned. The guns were there.
Where was Maggie's ring?
Underneath the seat.
Yeah, you remember that came up in court and how we were just such horrible crime scene technicians that we didn't find. It was there. It was located there. We photographed it. We logged it, but we didn't take it. Why didn't we take it? It's not evidence of the murder. They made a big deal about that, trying to make us and SLED sound sloppy. How would you just leave her ring under the seat? It's her ring.
Yeah.
It's not our ring.
In her car.
In her car. But it wasn't on her hand. It was underneath her seat. Not in the console, not in the cup holder, underneath her seat.
So we all dismissed the ring as potential evidence linked to the murders, right? But when I spoke to Maggie's friend, the Murdaugh housekeeper, Blanca Trubiate Simpson, she had a different theory about Maggie's ring that could have made it an important piece of evidence.
Her wedding band was right there between the console and the driver's seat on the floor.
Why?
I don't know. My inclination is the person who drove her car back to the house either took the ring off her finger, trying to make it look like a robbery, or they had other intentions with it. I don't know. But
obviously it dropped.
To me, it makes sense that whoever it was that took that ring off her finger was possibly trying to put it in like a side pocket, cargo pocket or something. Mm-hmm. And it fell.
And it fell.
And it fell. So to me, the person that drove that Mercedes from the hangar back to the house after the murders possibly tried to take her rings.
Why do you think, you say it and you talk about it in the book, but why do you think that they didn't take all the rings?
Her rings were tied on her fingers. And
it was hot that night.
Mm-hmm. Her rings were tied on her fingers, and they could have gotten spooked, by something, a noise or whatever.
We talked about that way because we were always like, well, was she getting, because we heard that she had been going for a pedicure and that maybe she took her ring off to get it and like stuck it under the thing and, stuff like that. Because this is the defense. This is what the defense said. They poked holes in the defense. In the SLED case, they tried to poke holes. Like when you got there, Daniel, they were trying to say, were you preserving it? What, were you doing everything? Talk to me a little bit. I mean, we know this was a defense tactic, right? What you were doing when you were out there, tell me what you do need to do, Daniel. Like, what did you have to do in order to be doing your job?
Yeah. So when you show up on a scene like that, obviously the very first thing going through my mind is everybody that's going to be getting here going to be safe? Is there a bad guy still around? Is suspect still around? Making sure I know where all the weapons are, because everybody's safety first and foremost. Regardless of what we're about to protect here, we need to make sure there's not going to be an additional crime while I'm here. So that's going through my head the whole time that I'm talking to him, looking at everything in the area. And then I want to start talking to him. It's hard for one person to secure a whole crime scene like that. I know I've got deputies that are 2 or 3, 4, or 5 minutes out. So this remote area, it's not like we were in the middle of a city like this and I was having to worry about 200 people contaminating a crime scene. I'm out there with me and Alex and fire rescue showing up. I'm not worried about people trampling all over the crime scene within the first few minutes that I'm there. So I know I've got deputies that are coming. So I'm talking to Alex, getting an idea of, more or less locking him into a initial, this is what happened. The very first time I go on scene on any crime scene, you want to talk to somebody and get their first initial statements of, this is what I did, this is what I came up on. because that locks them into that statement.
When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left, I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact times. Did you check?
Okay. Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that are, that's what they're going to do, okay?
Because then if they change it, you know, an hour, a day, a week down the road, you know, why'd you change it? It's easy to remember the truth. It's a lot harder to remember lies. So, you know, I'm doing that, and I've got other deputies, and you can see on my body camera, as soon as other deputies get there, I'm like, hey, make sure this happens, make sure this happens. We need to get crime scene tape up, get a crime scene log started. I even told one of them, you know, don't even let fire rescue put sheets on the bodies. We don't want to contaminate anything. You can hear it on my body camera, me telling where the deputy's at. Now, it still happened, but you know, those are the thoughts running through my mind. And that just comes, like you were saying earlier, from experience. You know, it's not like I've been doing this as long as him, but I've been doing it long enough to know that there are certain things you don't do on a crime scene that don't, if it doesn't need to be touched, you don't touch it. Observe everything, touch as little as possible. So.
Well, obviously the defense tactic didn't work because we wouldn't be, you know, Alex Murdaugh could not be in jail right now or in prison. But when you heard this, were there any points to it that you went, oh, yeah, we could have done that in 2020 and, you know, hindsight?
As far
Yeah,
as
we
crime
could have
scene?
done, crime scene stuff. Was there anything that you look back now? Or do you still look at it and say, no, this is exactly where we needed to be when we were there?
We learn every day. We evolve every day. We change policies every day. We might change a tactic after going to one scene. We might not change that tactic again for another 100 scenes. So to say that we didn't learn from a mistake, sure. Were there a lot of things that they made out to be mistakes that were not? 100%. And I'm going to throw a few of them at you because it's time that everybody gets to hear the truth. But
You can talk about the Booties, aren't you?
I will start with the Booties. So let's start with the Booties. That was a big, huge deal. And even though they asked me and they asked Crime Scene about the Booties, and then they brought in an expert or two and said, should they have had on Booties? Is it not common practice or protocol, I think is how they put it, to wear Booties?
Did you notice any protective covering on their feet?
No, sir.
And I call them booties. What do you call them?
Shoe cots or booties.
What?
Shoe cots or booties.
Oh, booties, okay. And is that, what if anything is, under the procedures you understand, is the purpose of those?
It's to keep your shoes from contaminating the scene with any residue that may be on them. And secondly, also not to allow the imprint pattern from your footwear to contaminate the scene.
Okay. Is that procedure that you teach? Is that procedure that's accepted? Is that, what is that?
It's standard operating procedure.
Standard operating procedure around the world?
It should be, yes.
Okay.
So I pose a question to you. Booties are made out of paper or a paper-like material. And the purpose of putting on a bootie would be to not introduce any type of contaminant into a scene or to remove evidence out of a scene. So let's talk about the feed room. This is where they're saying that we should have, by protocol, worn booties. What was in the doorway of the feed room? Paul. What was all around Paul? And this isn't something that we're assuming. We see it on Daniel's body cam. We see it with ourselves. Alex testified to it. All around Paul is water and blood and body parts and everything else, all types of contaminants. Standing water and blood. There's only one way in the feed room and one way out, and all of those contaminants are all over the front of that feed room. So what is less likely to introduce contaminants into a crime scene? A rubber-soled shoe or a paper bootie? A paper bootie is going to do nothing but soak up all that water, soak up all that blood mud, everything else. And the first step you take in that room is going to transfer all that stuff off that paper. So if you go to any crime scene class, it doesn't matter where you go in the nation, and you actually sit through and read the crime scene manual, it tells you that you use what is necessary. It is not common protocol to wear booties at a crime scene, especially an outdoor crime scene. I can't think of any time that we've worn booties. I even asked other crime scenes in other jurisdictions, not SLED, when's the last time you wore booties in an exterior crime scene? You don't, because it's not the right tool for the job. But then they went from that to the bloody footprint, the infamous bloody footprint that was left in the room because law enforcement is so careless and negligent. And that could have been the real shooter's footprint. If you start and look at the very first crime scene pictures, you see that the very first ones when we first got there, you'll see that there's two prints in the center of the room. And you heard Dr. Kinsey testify that they had gravity drops all around those two prints. And you heard Agent Worley testify that those prints matched Paul's shoes. So Paul was standing in the middle of the room when he was first shot, gravity dropped, blood dropped straight down on top of those prints.
I noticed in your report, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were unable to identify, either exclude or include, a number of different footprints in and around the feed room, bloody footprints, and other footprints, because of the quality of the photography. Is that correct?
I was able to attribute them to Paul's shoes.
I'm sorry?
I was able to attribute them to Paul's shoes, though.
Well, we'll talk about Paul's shoes in just a minute.
And those are the shoes that you did the inked impressions of, the footwear, to compare to those bloody prints in the feed room?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
So really was no discussion about whether or not that was Paul's bloody footprints and that was Paul's blood in the middle of the room. They kept referencing another print that was left by law enforcement. But if you look at all those pictures, that print's not there. There were no other prints. They talked about when Deputy McDowell and everyone helped us raise the sheet initially to make sure there wasn't a weapon there. Did you see how long it took Deputy McDowell to place his foot inside that room? You can go back and watch the video. It took him forever to actually select the exact spot he was going to place his foot down, making sure that he didn't touch anything or transfer anything. That footprint they're referencing was left after almost around 3:30, almost 4.5 hours after the crime, after the phone call. It was left by law enforcement after the room was processed during the removal of Paul's body. We actually took a picture of us leaving the footprint because there was no way for us to get him out without stepping there. But the room had already been processed. So there were no mysterious footprints left behind. There was no negligence on any of us for processing. It was done four something hours later during the removal of Paul. And you know that we're not going to remove him until we're done processing that area. So.
And that photograph was for the coroner's office because SLED takes photographs as well as the coroner's office. And he asked for us to take that photograph while we were removing Paul's body.
Wow.
Laura, were you in the courtroom to hear when John Metters made that counter to the defense expert? Wouldn't you just love to be Detective Laura? Did you hear that? And what did you think?
I did. I busted out laughing because I was like, oh, Lord, John, where are you going with this? And it was great. And then when he said he didn't know who I was hurt.
That's been an ongoing
That's an ongoing joke ever since. No, he was so fantastic. He did a great job of pointing out that their hired expert, $400 an hour on the stand, had not even read the entire report. My report was very detailed and very lengthy, and for him to have not even read it, it had to show the jury, this guy doesn't even know what he's testifying to right now.
And I think that speaks to what also came out from, either that guy or another one who's like, no, I wasn't given the full. He wasn't given access to everything. And that puts, that helps frame everything we're hearing and seeing, does it not?
Yes, exactly.
One thing that I learned, I got asked earlier, one thing, if you could walk away, what was one thing you learned from this trial? And I learned that you can pay somebody to say anything that you want. Because there was a lot of testimony from quote unquote experts that I won't go into detail about their expert testimony, but there was some of it that was as far from the truth as possible. And one that kind of had us been out of shape, even aside from the bloody footprint, was, they brought in an expert who looked at a picture of the crime scene, and he said, I can tell from this picture they didn't process this room for prints. Well, if you remember during his expert testimony, he said the most popular way in the nation to look for prints is fingerprint powder. That's what we see most, right? Everybody out there dusting for prints. Do you remember what he said the second most popular way was to look for prints? He referenced what they call ALS, or an alternate light source, and it's where we use lights to look for evidence of a print. So a flashlight, a fancy flashlight. So if I cut a flashlight on and I cut a flashlight off and I take a picture, what evidence is there that we used a flashlight in a still picture? None. The fact of the matter is, Laura and I processed the whole inside of the feed room with an ALS looking for prints. There were none. It's a dusty, nasty feed room. Dusty environments like that are not typically conducive to leaving a latent print. Typically, you touch something dusty like that and you pick your hand up, you just take a layer of dust away from it. But we processed the whole inside of that, the doorknobs, everything, looking for latents. And we used an ALS. And there were no prints. That's why there were none collected and none sent in. But to look at a still image and testify as an expert that you can tell we didn't process the room for prints, and to make it sound like we just didn't do it because we're lazy or incompetent, is absurd, when the whole room was processed. But you just don't see evidence of an ALS. It's just a flashlight, a fancy flashlight.
And if there had been prints, of course, now we know they would have been Alec, Paul, and Maggie's prints.
And what would have been the argument there? Hey, guess what? We found Alex Murdaugh's prints all over the door.
Well, he lives there.
There's the door.
And you found, I think you spoke to it, possibly the hair in Maggie's hand?
Yes. Yeah, so that was something mentioned in the defense closing to the jury, that I testified to hair being in Maggie's hand. Well, it was her hair. When she had the wound to the back of her head and the bullet exited the back, it removed that part of her skull and her scalp and her hair. And it was all scattered around her body in the grass. And when we removed Maggie's body, a few strands, not many, were on her hand and went with the body.
And Sam, I think you asked this, did you guys follow along with all the testimony? Obviously it was 6 weeks every day. Did you guys did you feel invested to listen to it all, when you could, or were you guys like, I want to hear all
We did. We watched every minute that we could watch, where we weren't tasked with doing something.
Right outside the courthouse.
Do you have any idea when we knew you knew who Alex Murdaugh was. You guys weren't as familiar with the whole scenario. But obviously this just starts snowballing afterwards, and we start learning about more, and things start unraveling more. Do you have any idea that this was going to be the reaction?
No, and I just want to say I'm very proud of Agent David Owen. None of us envied him in this process, being tasked with the lead agent on such a complex case, gaining national attention, and I don't know anybody else that could have handled it the way he did. I'm sure he's ready to retire now, but we're all very proud of him.
Do you think it was important to talk to Alex Murdaugh?
I did.
And can you tell the jury specifically how that came about?
Well, I was told that he arrived on scene and discovered his wife and son, and that he had made the 911 call. Being that it was his wife and son, and he found the bodies and made the 911 call, it was paramount that I talk to him. What was his observations, what's going on in his life, what's going on in Maggie and Paul's life, to try to figure out what happened. I still didn't know if it was, let me back up just a minute. Going into a death scene investigation, homicide investigators are taught to treat every scene as a homicide until determined otherwise. And that encompasses suicide, natural, accidental, or homicide or unexplained. So automatically I was treating it as a homicide, and I didn't know if it was or not. So it was paramount that I speak with Alex Murdaugh to try to determine what he saw, what he experienced, what's going on in their lives, to kind of help guide my investigation as it progressed.
He was very stoic through all that. I sat right behind him and Charles Gent through this whole thing.
Yes.
And two of the most stoic personalities, because they just raked him over the coals every day. Something about Agent Owen got brought up. Then you.
Yeah.
But still, you guys were at the center of a storm. For sure. You were, as the prosecutor aptly put it, you were there to discover this first part, and it just kept on going. This has been your life for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Every time you turn around, there's another twist. None of us I didn't have any idea that it was going to snowball the way it did. None whatsoever. And I'm going to tell you, you have to give Chief Keel at SLED, he's amazing. He does not, he doesn't allow people to talk about things. He doesn't disclose information that doesn't need to be disclosed. He runs a very tight professional ship. I got the utmost respect for him, and it filters down.
But today it's important for me to speak out. It's important because of the victims in this case. It's important because Maggie and Paul cannot. I want to make one thing clear to everybody. There are no winners today. This case serves notice to anyone who aided or assisted Alex Murdaugh in committing any crime, that justice will be sought.
And everybody that we work with from SLED, from crime scene to the low country office to whoever, listen, if we didn't need to know it, they didn't tell us, and vice versa. And we have the utmost respect for them for that. Sheriff Hill's team, we all feel the same way. We're not gonna be offended. We're not gonna be angry. There were things we didn't find out about until you guys did. But they have lived and worked and lived and worked. And when it touched our county and they needed our help, they picked up the phone and we sent the cavalry. And over and over and over and over again, we found ourselves at the same places helping out on the same case with the same suspect. So no, I had no idea.
Well, and also possibly more for you than you guys, but I still living, breathing, you're right here. Did you have people in the community say, hey, watch it? You're talking about the Murdaughs here. Like, were you treading, did people ever tell you tread softly, be careful, this is dangerous, you could get in trouble?
Not with us, no. we didn't talk about it any more than anybody else did. We're not going to disclose anything, and they wouldn't bring anything to us unless they wanted us to use it. You know, we didn't discuss this case. There were a lot of times that things went on that I might not know about. My detectives might not have known about it. The sheriff may have been the only one simply, you know, to keep things quiet and controlled and integrity to the case. So most people didn't approach us about stuff, knowing that if you come and say something, then we're going to add you to that witness list. But they need all the help they can get. Obviously, look at the feat that they're tackling. And it keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah, we're not done with this.
No. What was the feeling as the stories came out, as things changed, and you're knowing you were the first on the scene, so you're eventually gonna have to take the stand. Probably you're probably thinking that. But what was the feeling as all these pieces came out, and maybe you're witnessing some of them as an audience like we are, leading up to the trial? How did y'all, you know, was there an anticipation, like with every new development, like in anticipation to get to a trial, to get to sort of tell the story as best you could, to testify, if you will?
I didn't feel that way. I had a lot of family that would want to ask about it, and I just tell everybody the same thing, to remember that this is a double homicide. At the end of the day, 2 people are dead. So while it's exciting to sit back and watch, we have to remember that, you know, a mother and son were brutally murdered. And of course, now we know it was by their husband and father. So my response was usually the same. It's really not that interesting. It's actually very sad. And then we would change the subject. As far as my testimony, I knew what my involvement was, and I just treated it like any other case, except the world's watching.
Did you know Paul Murdaugh and or Maggie Murdaugh?
I did not.
Had you ever seen them before you saw them laying dead on the ground?
No.
At that point, did you walk any of the rest of the scene?
Not at that point.
Okay. Well, tell the folks what you did do after that.
We located Mr. Murdaugh, Alex, standing at the back of there was his Suburban, and then there was, I believe his brother Randy had arrived at the scene at that point, and they were standing behind Randy's truck, so they couldn't see the scene anymore. So we approached him and asked if he would speak with us. He introduced the man standing next to him as his personal attorney, Danny Henderson, and he agreed to speak with us. By this point, it had started to rain, so we utilized Agent Owen's vehicle to do the interview.
So
Literally. Was watching. We're still getting calls from the world. They want to know more.
Yeah, my dad lives in England, and he watched every day and called me every day. Yes.
I think you see the different spectrum from the group you see sitting here. It's not the excitement side. And I say that because 6 months prior to this trial, in this same courthouse, the same detectives, you know, or group of investigators for the sheriff's office, with help from a lot of the same agents you saw testify here and there, we prosecuted a triple homicide. And, you know, this was an individual that broke into a home and killed a mom, dad, and then gunned down a 13-year-old kid in the street in front of a school bus. And, you know, he not only was arrested for those 3, but still has a pending double homicide. So he's a quintuple murder suspect. And, you know, we took him to court and we did a phenomenal job. And obviously he was found guilty on all 3 counts of murder. And, you know, he's never going to see the light of day. And no national media attention there because he wasn't a Murdaugh. You know, to us, it's doing our job. It's keeping the community safe. It's being a voice for the victims. I was just as happy for that triple that we put all that work into as I was about the Murdaugh case. It just didn't get national attention.
Drew was in the courthouse every day covering it.
And since you brought that up, I will ask this, and this is a small tangent from that. A lot of the commentary that happened early on in the trial from just observers, very what I interpreted to be ignorant to how trials work. And the analogy I used a lot was, y'all have to not only tell us what time it is, you got to tell us how to make the watch on the way before we get there. Granted, it's very, very out of the ordinary in the length and the depth of the evidence, but as far as the presentation and trials you've been a part of, in cases you've helped prosecute, how much, if at all, was this a departure from a standard criminal trial as far as how things have to go? Check this box, check this box. Was it different at all, really?
It was way different. Ask someone when the last time was that DNA, gunshot residue, blood splatter, tire impressions, latent prints were the case-breaking piece of evidence in a homicide. When we find that stuff and it's evidence of the crime that we've got someone charged with, that's great. It's great evidence. We're excited to find it. It helps us prosecute that individual, hopefully get a guilty verdict, bring justice to the victims. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of this stuff is glorified, through TV series and stuff. We don't find a lot of the stuff that you think you're going to find. I'm not sure exact percentage now, but I know when I went through the training, only about 11% of fingerprints that are left behind are usable. In other words, only about 11% of the time that you touch something do you leave a latent print that can actually be collected to the point that it has enough identified characteristics that we can say it's yours. 11%. These things they're not as hardcore or as definite as people think. Give you a great example. The gun that Alec handed over to Detective Greene on body camera. He hands him the gun, or he says, "There's the gun right there that I had."
I did go get a gun and bring it down here.
It's in your vehicle? Do you have any guns on you at all?
No, sir. It's leaning up against the side of my car.
Okay. You're fine, man. You're fine. Turn around for me.
I don't have any.
Okay. Yes, sir. I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son?
And son.
Okay. How did you pull up? You from back there?
I went to the house and they weren't home, which was odd. I tried to call.
Okay.
And then I knew they had been down here before I left to go to my mom's.
Okay.
And so that is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it. But
Is this the only firearm with you? This is the only one, or is there any more in the truck?
I believe that's it.
You think that's the only one? Okay.
I'm 99%.
Do you normally
certain
have any other firearms in your vehicle?
I don't, but
Okay.
occasionally there's a pistol in there.
Okay. Just wait right here for me for a second, okay?
He surrenders the gun. Detective Greene collects it with rubber gloves, puts it in his vehicle, secures it. It's never touched again until crime scene collects it. It's collected then with gloves. What was the result of that gun when they tested it for DNA against Alex? Did it have Alex's DNA on it?
Maggie's on it.
Yeah.
Did they say it had Alex's on it? Do you remember?
Well, this stuff.
No.
No, it had Maggie's blood.
Had Maggie's blood, right? But they never came back with a definite saying we got a DNA match to. But how's that possible? He had the gun. He put the gun against the car. He went to the house and got the gun, brought the gun back, and put the gun against the car with his bare hands. Why is his DNA not on it? It is there. It's just, it's mixed in with a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's not, they can't isolate it to the point that they can say that is just his DNA. So a lot of the stuff you see it's not like it is on TV. So it is difficult. But I don't think that you have all the aspects that were mentioned in this case. You'll find that all the time in a case. A lot of times it is exactly what we've been talking about all along. It's observations by keen officers that arrive first on scene. It's them doing their job right and securing a crime scene to make sure that nothing walks off. It may be nothing more than an interview. I mean, we had a recent homicide that, we showed up, there was no evidence, nothing there, but a set of footprints on a dirt road. And an hour later, we've got a confession. And it was done completely in an interview room.
So were you in the car with the I did him so bad, they did him so bad? Were you in the
No, that was the second.
that second one?
That was the second one.
Did y'all listen to that?
We all listened.
Yeah, we listened to it in the trial. Mm-hmm.
What did you think?
Yanny or Laurel, blue dress or gold dress. I hear both.
I think you hear whatever you're looking for. If you went into it saying, did he say they? You're going to hear they. If you think
You're going to hear I.
Sitting here talking today is tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
When you asked the defendant about the traumatic picture that he saw of Paul and Maggie, what did he say?
It's just so bad. I did him so bad.
I did him so bad.
Yes, sir.
Back it up and play it in real time again, Doug. Real time. Or not easy. I know it's hard. And sitting here talking today is tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
Did you hear now, they or I?
I will still testify that my hearing, I hear I.
Your Honor, we'd like to play it again at 1/3 speed to slow it down. It's the same. Thank you. And sitting here talking today is tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
Did you hear they then?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay.
I have a question about evidence kind of with jurors. Like, have you guys ever seen a case, you know, the state had like an 88-page timeline of cell phone data, car data. Like, is that common? Have you ever seen a case that literally pinpoints minutes, seconds? You know, they say that they died in a 4-minute time frame.
The same case that Drew just told me about with that triple homicide. We drove that individual between telephone and surveillance footage from stores and residences. We literally drove him from where he met the victim all the way to Ruffin to the house to the minute they pulled the trigger. Does it always happen like that? Absolutely not. Sometimes it's harder. Sometimes we have cases now we can't get any cell phone data at all. But
they didn't have a phone.
Or they didn't have a phone.
I don't think he put that phone back on.
I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses.
Why was the phone on top of Paul? Do y'all have any theories about that? Why was the phone sitting on top of Paul?
Well, I know why it was there, because Alex took it out of his pocket.
What was he doing with it?
All I can say is that he was probably looking for the video that was one of the things that sealed his fate.
He knew he was talking to Rogan.
We knew he was talking to Rogan. It happened right afterwards. So were y'all in on that conversation with Rogan?
No.
But did you know that it had happened, or did that just go straight into all of the other stuff that was being processed at that point?
Yeah, because the first time I seen the video was during the trial.
That's the first time you saw the kennel video.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we knew about the conversation.
We knew it existed and what was said.
Yeah,
I had not seen it.
Yeah. But that was when we were talking about all that initial stuff, remember? And we were talking about how bloody and how gory a crime scene is and how much water is everywhere. How is that phone, if you went with his story, that he went over and he went to check his son and he tried to roll Paul and the phone fell out. It fell out. The entire sidewalk is covered in blood and water. But yet, here's the phone placed on the back of Paul, and it doesn't have anything on it. Nothing. Not a speck of anything. So, did it fall out? No, it didn't fall out. Alex took it out of his pocket, just like he slipped up and told me when he got there, but then changed during the interview with
It
David
popped
Evans
out of
and
his
Laura,
pocket.
that it popped out.
And I ran over to Maggie, and actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. You know, I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out. His cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started to try to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly.
But if it had popped out, how to get clean?
So he told you that he took it out of his pocket?
He told me he took it out. But he told them an hour later.
And he tried to turn him, tried to check him, and it popped out of his pocket.
So when you saw that kennel video, you were like, holy cow. Yeah. That must have blown your mind when you saw that too.
Definitely did. I mean, I had no idea that was coming. So I was just as surprised.
We had only heard that they had recovered something. I mean, here you are, we were with them all along, but I told you they're not going to disclose there was no need for them to disclose that to us. We didn't need to know that. At that point in time, them having the video helped the case, but telling us would have done nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, we tell you, we're best work buddies. We work well together. We'll do anything for one another to help each other out. But there was absolutely no reason for them to disclose that to any of us. It was a surprise, and it was a great surprise.
How close was Alex Murdaugh to getting away with these double murders in your mind? Or do you think he was always going to be the one prosecuted for this? And that's a hard question. But do you know what I mean? Like, how close was he to walking away from this? Did he make way too many mistakes? Or do you feel like he could have gotten away with murder?
No, I definitely think he could have gotten away with it. I mean, personal feeling. I think that, you know, the hard work of that team, and I mean from the top down, the AG, all of his attorneys on that team, SLED, everybody that had a handful, they all had a part in it. They knew that they had the unclimbable hill to face. I mean, the attention that it was getting, the scrutiny it was getting, you know, Harpoolian and his team, they're nothing to toy around with. They're great attorneys. They're good at what they do. So yeah, that was a monstrous feat. So was there a chance? Sure, there was a chance. But I think that they made it clear if he won, or if he was found not guilty, it wasn't going to be because they didn't do everything they could. But yeah, I think there's obviously a good chance he could have gotten off.
You know, it was like, you do? You think there was a good chance he could have gotten
If they had not worked as hard as they had. Now, as it stands with what they presented and how they presented and what they did, he's guilty. And I think your jurors show you that. I mean, to return in 3 hours, absolutely. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. So it's not like they bent anything or flexed anything. In other words, he's guilty because he's guilty. Could he have gotten away? Sure, he could have, had they not done the work. If they had not done everything that they did, I mean, and I'm sure they look back just like you asked us, is there anything we could have done in hindsight? And I'm sure there's a list as long as my arm of stuff they would have liked to have done, but they obviously did enough and did it right.
Is there anything that you would have done? Like, I'm just asking because I'm sure y'all have talked about this. Like, is there anything that you would have done that would have been like, man, if we had known that he was going to take guns out of the house or anything like that? Was there anything? I mean, I don't know. And there probably isn't. It sounds like y'all have y'all were doing everything, but I was just curious.
I don't like to do that because everyone works so hard, and we all had the same goal, and that was to get justice for Maggie and Paul, and we did that. So it's not going to change anything. So.
Were you guys surprised at the 2-3 hour verdict? Boom. Yeah.
Actually,
No.
we called. we had our numbers and our bets going on inside the office out here, and Laura and I actually
Right
we
on
were
the
all
money.
right on the money. We were 4 minutes off.
So you're buying the beers.
Yeah, it was done. We bet between 6:30 and 7 with guilty, and
Yeah.
it was 6:41. So we were only 4 minutes off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just from
Being able to read people.
reading people's faces. Just, the witnesses as they came off that stand, and how, remember, we couldn't see the jurors any more than anybody else can unless we were working inside security. But you could see the people in the crowd and gauging their response to individual witnesses, looking at what, how they responded to testimony or to rebuttal testimony. And we just sat back and watched and watched and watched and watched and watched. And then we took a vote at the end.
And for me, Moselle field trip was huge. And being the security detail, we had to escort the jury and the judge out there. And we just stood back and observed the jury as they were looking at everything. And that, for me, that's when I knew. I could just read their faces as they were taking everything in. So.
What do you think was going through their minds? Like, what was it that you were reading? What was it that they were expressing?
Yeah, just that what Alex was saying just wasn't adding up. Once they could see how close the house actually is to the kennels, I think the light bulbs came on. Mm-hmm.
It's completely different seeing something in a picture.
Yeah.
Or body camera, especially when, my body camera was at night. I mean, so different seeing that on a screen versus standing right. I mean, they were out there literally standing right where the bodies were found. They walked right through where I was walking, where these guys were walking.
Yeah.
And I think it just, the reality of it, you could almost see it set in. Not just for the jurors, but some of the other people that, the other lawyers and stuff that were out there. You can see that.
The biggest surprise for me in the trial was that request came from the defense.
We knew as soon as we walked up. You could see them literally stepping off things. They stood in a group outside the door to the feed room, and they discussed the opening of the door. You could actually see them on their hands and knees looking at the doghouse, looking for the hole where we pulled the round out of the doghouse, inspecting the hole in the quail pen.
Standing on the front porch of the house.
Walking on foot from the kennels to the house so they could see exactly how far away it was and what they could hear and what they could see.
In fact, several of them, if not all of them, refused. We allowed them to walk to the house, and then the option was to get back in the vans and drive back to the kennels. And a lot of them refused and said, no, we want to walk it.
They were good jurors, huh?
They were really
Yes, they paid attention.
I watched them every day too. When I wasn't watching Agent Owen's expression, I was watching the jurors because I just wanted to. I was like, what are they looking at? A lot of them were looking at Alec.
Yeah.
Trying to read his body language, trying to say, hey, did you do this?
Yeah.
Before we have to convict you? Did you really do this? The other thing that they said was tough was his testimony.
What did you do when you went up to Paul at some point in time?
Hey, Paul. Paul was so bad. At some point, I know I tried to check him for a pulse. I know I tried to turn him over.
When you say you tried to turn him over, why were you trying to turn him over?
I don't know. I don't know why I tried to turn him over. Me and my boys laying face down. And he's done the way he's done. His head was the way his head was. I could see his You could see his brain laying on the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I tried to turn him over. I grabbed him by the belt loop and tried to turn him over.
Well, the real reason, Mr. Murdaugh, is that you as a lawyer and prosecutor are up at 9:02, finally having your phone in your hand, moving around and making all these phone calls to manufacture an alibi. Is that not true?
That's absolutely incorrect.
So that's just another circumstance and coincidence in this particular case. Right around the time that you lied to law enforcement about maybe one of the most important facts in the case.
Comment before the question.
It is an absolute fact that I am not manufacturing an alibi, as you say.
How do you remember so much detail about everything else, but you don't remember what you were specifically doing to generate 283 steps while you're making all these phone calls in the same 4-minute period?
I remember unequivocally, without any doubt, with as clear a mind as I could have at any time, that I never manufactured any alibi in any way, shape, or form, because I did not and would not hurt my wife and my child.
So why
So
can't
I
you
know
remember
for a
what
fact
you were doing?
that I never, ever, ever created an alibi.
Why don't you remember what you were doing when you were so busy for this 4-minute critical period?
I do
Other
remember
than
what I was doing.
Other than I was getting ready to go.
Well, that's because that's what I was doing.
For him to get up there and testify, when you listened to him try and explain, were you having flashbacks to like when he was talking to you guys?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. He displayed a lot of the same stuff that he displayed to us.
Here we go again.
Yeah, it's like reliving, his reaction that night. It didn't seem any more genuine or disgenuine than it did that night.
Were you guys surprised to hear him admit that he was there? That was like right off.
I knew he had to once that kennel video came out.
Once all that evidence got put into play, it was you can't deny it anymore. There's no way. No one with any amount of common sense is going to stand up on the stand and say, I wasn't there. Yes, you were. So.
Yeah, we felt like he was going to admit to it, but it was going to be what was the excuse for lying. But, y'all have heard or seen the interviews. And, I mean, there was no coercion, there's no force, there's no threats. He's not in a little tiny hot room for 6 hours.
I think Mr. Hartpulian in his opening statement described our interview as aggressive and accusatory. Well, I'll let everyone else be the judge of that, but...
There's absolutely no way that was, any of those interviews in any way influenced him not to tell the truth.
He's saying, I mean, he was already talking about stuff when he talked to you, and you're county, law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm someone that he, given his argument, he should have felt no threat from me, and the first words out of his mouth are lies.
The 911 dispatcher.
Yeah, before he even gets there. He's obviously already lying to 911, but.
Alec did tell many, many lies, and he apologized to his son Buster, his family, and even investigators, but he never apologized to Paul and Maggie. He said he'd never hurt them, but he didn't apologize for all the lies he told. Do you think he left them out on purpose? Like and subscribe for all the true crime stories that you can't get enough of. And I promise I'll have more Murdaugh content soon.